Well, Oregon in the initial college football playoff rankings is number 6, the highest ranked one-loss team in all the land, which means they control their own fate for everything. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. So if you have not already, like, comment, and subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet, including Oregon against Cal. That's $150 if the Ducks win. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, Oregon is deemed the best one-loss team in all of college football right now, which I'm not going to sit here and complain about. You could make an argument for Texas. I see it. Here's the reason Oregon's ahead of Texas. Whose loss is more impressive? They both had close losses in big-time nationally televised rivalry games that could have gone either way and were decided in the final 90 seconds. Oklahoma just lost to Kansas. Washington hasn't lost yet. Simple. Pretty simple. Oregon also just went on the road and dominated Utah. Yeah, that was pretty good. Turns out that helps. So Oregon is in a position in which they were in a season ago in Dan Lanning's first year at the helm. I happen to think that this team is better than last year's team and more capable of getting to the college football playoff. But a couple of you have asked me this question, and we'll be diving into it more on today's show. Oregon controls its own destiny to get to the Pac-12 Championship game. If they win their next 4 games, guess what? They're in. Nobody can keep them out. Nobody. And if they win those 4 games and go to the Pac-12 Championship game and play, for instance, Washington would probably be the best team to play there. A one-loss Power 5 champion has never, in the history of the 4-team playoff, and this is the final year, and I don't expect this to change, has never been left out of the top 4. And that's not going to start this year. So the Ducks are in a good spot. Number 6 is good. Great place to be. I think the Ducks got as high as 5 or 6 a season ago, but they're behind the Huskies at number 5. Michigan is number 3. Florida State is number 4. I don't know why I flipped those. There's an accident. Georgia's number 2. Ohio State is number 1. I don't have a lot of beef there other than I would have put Florida State ahead of Michigan because Florida State's resume is more impressive. They have 2 ranked wins, and both of them were by at least 18 points. Michigan, on the other hand, has played a joke of a schedule. I'm not even going to talk about what's going on over at Michigan right now. I was annoyed with Michigan previously because of what they're allowed to do in the context of the college football world with their non-conference scheduling and going out there and playing 3 absolute cupcakes each of the last 2 seasons and being rewarded for it. I cannot stand that. It bugs me. I don't need you to go play, the number 1 team from the ACC, but gosh almighty, your best non-conference game should not be against UNLV, an upstart team under Barry Odom out of the Mountain West down in Las Vegas. That's the best non-conference team they played. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So I'd put Michigan at 4 and Florida State at 3. Other than that, I have no issues there. Ohio State's got the most impressive resume there. But the good news for the Ducks is the committee and the college football world sees Oregon the way we've all been seeing Oregon, which is they're really good, barely lost to Washington, certainly capable of beating the Huskies. And if Oregon's able to get revenge against them in the Pac-12 title game like they did against Arizona in 2014, we will be talking about the Ducks as a team that is playing for a college football playoff semifinal and therefore a berth in the national championship game. Cannot wait. Let's get straight into the mailbag here. We start with subtext, of course. If you want to be a Locked On Ducks insider, get breaking news, reactions, a chance to talk with me one-on-one, and much, much more, including priority mailbag access in there. Go join at subtext.com/LockedOnDucks or click the link in the description below wherever you listen to or watch this show. This one came in. Do you think there's any chance that the USC-Oregon game could get College Game Day to Eugene? I assume it would require at least a victory by USC, University of Swiss cheese defense, over Washington this weekend, so USC remains ranked. Yeah, I don't think it's impossible. Let me pull up the slate real quick because I don't know that it's amazing, that week. So it's technically possible. I mean, yes, USC would have to win this weekend for sure. But, next week when they come to Autzen Stadium, you got USC and Oregon. If they beat Washington, SC probably goes up inside the top 15. But Ole Miss and Georgia is there next week. As of now, that's a top 10 showdown, subject to change. Tennessee, Missouri. Again, I could see that happening because Missouri's kind of fun, though they have to play Georgia this week, so they probably lose, maybe not. When you look around, the place it's going to end up being is Michigan at Penn State. I don't think they're going to pass up a chance to go to that stadium and that crowd. And, I can't blame them for sure. Like, I don't think that's a bad option. Like, there's not a 0% chance. I wouldn't count on it though. Michigan at Penn State, that's going to be college game day there. And both those teams will win this week, and that'll kind of lock that up. Another one here from Subtext. If Oregon and Washington meet in the Pac-12 championship game, could that game determine the Heisman Trophy winner? Not directly. Indirectly, perhaps. It can be a contributing factor, but it is not a lock the Heisman Trophy winner comes out of the Pac-12. If Oregon gets to that game, which, as I've said, they control their own destiny for, it is completely in their hands, nobody else's. They don't need someone to beat somebody or so-and-so to lose or anything like that. Michigan and Ohio State, and this applies to the playoff as well, Michigan and Ohio State have to play each other. Just like we saw last year, until USC lost to Utah, if they'd won that game, they were going to be in over an 11-1 non-Big Ten champion, which is what we're going to have again this year between Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. Someone is going to be 11-1 and not playing the conference title game because they still have divisions over there in our future conference. Why? I don't know. They're pretty dumb, but they've still got them. So that's the way it works. If Oregon gets there, they control their own destiny. The same cannot be said for Bo Nix's Heisman campaign. Now, he's top 5 in the odds, which is where he should be. It's tied to Oregon's team success, though. If Oregon gets to the playoff, Bo Nix can go to New York. If they don't, he cannot. The numbers are not staggeringly awesome enough in the eyes of the college football world for Bo Nix to be that sort of guy. But if Oregon is 13-1 and going to play for a national championship or at least a spot in the college football playoff semifinal, I'd be pretty surprised if Bo Nix isn't there because he's been Oregon's leader. But it's not like Penix, for instance, where Washington could go, say, 12-1, and like if they were to win out, but lose to us in the Pac-12 championship game, lose to the Ducks, then both teams would be 12-1. They'd value the conference championship. Oregon would get in over Washington. Penix could still go to New York at that point in time, right? Like Caleb Williams did a season ago. Oregon runs the ball too well and is too balanced for that to happen. So the team controls its own destiny. Bo Nix in the Heisman campaign, which I don't think he's too worried about anyway. They definitely are not. This from Cam Spencer, everyday listener, first time question. Love it. If Oregon wins out, including the Pac-12 championship, is there any worry that we'll still miss out on the college football playoff, possibly to a one-loss Michigan, Ohio State, or undefeated Florida State if they went out? Your thoughts? Appreciate everything you do. Go Ducks. No. So I touched on this a moment ago. The answer is no. Full stop. One loss or undefeated Power 5 conference champions have never missed the 14 playoff. That will not start this year. And the precedent is already there, as I mentioned with Ohio State. A conference championship factors into the calculations for the College Football Playoff Committee every single year, as it should, as to who the best 4 teams are and who gets to go into the 14 playoff. And if you have that at 12-1, yeah, I guess to be 12-1. I said 13-1 earlier. Sorry. If Oregon goes 12-1, wins the conference championship, they can't be left out. There is no way, because they're sitting here at number 6, and 12-1 would mean a ranked win over USC, ranked win over Oregon State, a couple blowout wins, hopefully against Cal and Arizona State, and then avenging your one loss from the season, which doesn't make you the same as an undefeated team, but you would be viewed similarly, because it's like, well, they lost that game, but it was really close and it was on the road and it came down to one play, that if they'd converted, they would have won. It's not like Oregon got blown out or anything like that. So no, I have no doubts at all whatsoever. Oregon wins their next 5 games. They're in the college football playoff. Full stop. Great question, though. There are more great questions in the mailbag. I have one for all of you. Why haven't you checked out FanDuel yet? You can score early this NFL season with FanDuel That's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. Oregon's spread against Cal is -24. If you haven't joined FanDuel, this is quite literally the perfect time. You go in there, put down $5 on Oregon's money line, they'll win, and you get $150 in bonus bets if the Ducks win, which guess what? They're going to. I can't see Oregon losing this football game because the Ducks playing really well. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Quick little second segment sip. Let's keep things rolling here. Lots of mailbag questions. Been getting a bunch of them. And by the way, I absolutely love it. This is the People Show. I'm nothing if not a man of the people. Quick word, by the way. Tomorrow's show is going to drop later than normal. Later than normal. It will still be on Thursday, and then there will be a show on Friday, and we'll look at everything going into that Cal game. Tomorrow's show will not be in your feed at the same time. Scheduling conflict with my guy Brian Smith. Like, he's only got certain times available, and that's when we're going to be able to make it work. But I figured you'd all want to hear for him, so I ask for your patience tomorrow and appreciate it in advance. This question from Nick, and again, subtext not the only way to send mailbag questions in. Of course not. YouTube comments or Twitter always available at Smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks. This question from Nick, opinion request. That's kind of what I do here. With the Pac doing what it does every year by cannibalizing itself, teams falling down the rankings or completely out, does that affect Oregon's strength of schedule to the point of affecting their playoff rankings? No, not really, because you look at what Oregon State did this weekend. They lost on the road to a good Arizona team. They went from 11th down to 16th. So Oregon State does not play a contender again until the last 2 weeks of the regular season. The Beavs at 6-2 right now, as long as they win their next couple of games, which are against Oregon State or against Oregon State. Well, they're kind of playing Oregon State when they play Stanford, as we all know. But they play Colorado on the road, and then they come back home and play Stanford and Washington, I believe, before they go on to play the Ducks at Autzen Stadium. I'm correct about that. So they're at Colorado and against Stanford. They should win those two games. Now, if they lose to Colorado, a loss to Washington would put them out of the top 25. But if they beat Colorado and beat Stanford, that's an 8-2 football team. And what they would be if they lose at home against Washington and then at Oregon is the best 8-4 team in the country in all likelihood, or certainly one of them. And I don't think they would fall completely out of the rankings there. The other teams that Oregon's got on its schedule, Cal, not going to be ranked. Arizona State, not going to be ranked. USC's schedule is curious to say the least. So they play Washington at home this week, and they only have 3 games left on their schedule. So USC has already won 7 games this season. They're 7-2, not 6-2 like a lot of people. They're 7-2 because they played Notre Dame. They had Stanford early in the year, and so their bye actually comes in the last week of the regular season when the Ducks will be playing the Beavs during rivalry week. So USC plays Washington at home, at Oregon, UCLA at home. That's pretty tough next 3 games. They're not going to lose all of them. They're also not going to win all of them. I think the most likely outcome for them is 1-2, and they end the year 8-4. But again, I think the power of USC helps, though they'd have 1 ranked win and 4 ranked losses to Notre Dame, Utah, and 2 of Washington and UCLA. I do think there's a world in which USC ends the year 9-3. They could beat Washington, beat UCLA at home, and lose to the Ducks at Autzen. I don't think Oregon loses that game, barring something bizarre happening. But I lay all this out to answer your question and say, I'm not worried about it, no. Because the win against Utah looks awesome with the score. And teams might fade a little bit, But the other thing that with regards to Oregon's strength of schedule is if Oregon ends up playing Washington again and they beat them, the Huskies are going to be a top 10 team by the end of the year, no matter what, right? They could go 10-2 in the regular season, which they won't. They'll go 11-1 most likely. It would be my guess. And then if Oregon beats them in the Pac-12 Championship game, the Huskies are 11-2. Yeah, they're still going to be inside the top 10. They're still going to be inside the top 10. So you'd have a top 10 win, a top 15 win against Utah, at least one other top 20 win between Oregon State or USC. I think one of them finds a way to be inside the top 20 when they play the Ducks. And I think that's going to be more than enough. And when you look at Oregon's resume right now, by the way, the committee is impressed with the way the Ducks are winning these games. And Cal will be another, potential opportunity, kind of like a slight opportunity to do that. Because one thing that the committee chair talked about is, Washington's at number 5 and not inside the top 4 because they've struggled with two teams who have a combined 4 wins the last 2 weeks, Arizona State and Stanford. Fact check true. Meaning they're paying attention to how you win games. How has Oregon won games? Well, let's see. There was a 1-possession game on the road against Texas Tech. That was early in the year, not doing anything bad for the Ducks. Not helping them in a major way, but it's not dinging them. They had a 1-possession game against Washington that they barely lost. And every other game, they're winning by at least 2 possessions. And Washington State wasn't as close as 38-24 indicated. That touchdown was scored with less than a minute to go. So Oregon's taking opponents that they are better than and beating them by a lot. And the committee wants to see that. Style points matter here. And style points have helped get Oregon into the number 6 position here. So their schedule is clearly strong enough. The committee views it that way, as they should. And there will be more ranked wins if Oregon wins out. I think at least one of Oregon State and USC, probably both, will be ranked by the time they play the Ducks. And yeah, I'm going to get to something else on USC a little bit later because there's a question in there. Okay, because this is another question from Nick that bounces around a bit. So I guess I'm full of questions. I'm full of answers, so this is a great arrangement. Oregon seems to be signing a ton of players considered edge players, referring, of course, to Elijah Rushing, the 5-star that Oregon signed the other day. Don't get me wrong. They all seem like great recruits, but how many is too many? Is there such a thing in your opinion? Nope. Absolutely, positively not. You never know when a kid's going to get injured, like Justin Flo. You never know when a kid just isn't going to work out. You don't know when a 3-star is going to pop. Tatum Tuioti on some recruiting services was a 3-star. How does he look? Regular rotation player for the Ducks. He's seen the field as much as Mateo Uyunglele, who once upon a time was a 5-star recruit. Mateo had 5 stars next to his name. Tatum had 3. Blake Purchase had 4. They're all playing. They all look like studs. I think when it comes to any given position group, more competition, more opportunities for, just kind of the law of averages to work out that a guy pops and becomes a great player is a good thing. And when you look at what Oregon does at each position, that's the way they approach it. I don't think they sign kids thinking every single one of them is going to play. That'd be an illogical way to think. But you're signing, however many kids. Let's just take, a defensive end position or an edge spot. You want to recruit 8 guys in there and figure out, okay, all these kids have potential in some form or fashion, but we want to find the 4 best ones. So you guys go at it. Iron sharpens iron. If Blake Purchase looks across and sees, dang, Mateo looks really, really good, I got to up my game. Or Tatum Tuioti looks across and goes, man, Purchase is playing awesome. I got to up my game to see the field. That's a good thing. Bring in as many as you want, as long as it takes. And then with the portal, you can do roster assessment of like, okay, we brought in a lot of high school kids along the defensive line the last couple of years. A lot. Breland and Rushing coming in next year. All the 4-star interior defensive linemen that are redshirting this season, right? Terrence Green, Amari Washington, Ashton Porter. There are a bunch of them. There are a bunch, Johnny Bowens. There are a lot of names in there who, when they played against Portland State, got their opportunity, looked good. We'll see who pops next year. Aiden Breland will be in the mix. But it's, not a guessing game per se. It's kind of a throw everything at the wall and see what sticks with the expectation of any one of these noodles could stick to the wall. I'm going to throw 8 of them there. Oh, look, 5 of them stuck. And those guys are really good players. The other guys can either be depth pieces or they can transfer out. That's the world of college football that we're in. So no, I don't think you can have too many at a position like defensive line that's so foundational to the game and so foundational what Dan Lanning wants to do defensively. So, we still have more to get to. How could we possibly have more to get to? It's really, really easy. How could we possibly have forgotten to mention eBay Motors? Wait a minute, we didn't. Passion, drive, and patience, what bring home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. Mine's called the Red Rocket. It's out in the garage, 2000 ES 300. It's beautiful. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Third segment set. Yep. I thought about it, and then I said, yeah, better safe than sorry. Okay. There was a question that I wasn't going to have in today's show originally, but given what has come up, we're going to get to it. So then I'll close with 2 questions from Blazer Duck. But let me find it in my notes real quick. Okay, here it is. This was from Out O Stock. Hey, Spencer, I've been watching your show for the last 2 years and really enjoy your perspective and logical thoughts on every game and season. Thank you, good sir. Appreciate you as well. My question is, if Oregon wins out the remainder of the season in the Pac-12 Championship, should Oregon playoff hopefuls root for a Washington upset this season before we face them, if it goes that way, or do we want them to win out? Thank you and keep doing your thing. So if you want to maximize Oregon's strength of schedule, Oregon should actually be rooting, the fans should be rooting for USC to win this week. Here's why. One loss is not going to move the Huskies very far, especially if it's to a ranked USC team. So if USC beats Washington this Saturday, which they're capable of, I have my doubts because Alex Grinch is still coaching the defense, but hey, all right, whatever. If USC wins, they would go from number 20 to shooting up the list to probably the next highest ranked Pac-12 team. They would have 2 losses on the year, only 1 in conference play, and they'd probably be at probably about where Utah is, number 13. So Oregon would then have the chance to pick up a top 15 win for the second time in 3 weeks, and if they meet Washington again in the Pac-12 championship game. Because if Oregon beats USC, that's the Trojans' second conference loss. And then Washington from that point would probably win out. I think Washington has 1 loss in them in the regular season. I don't think they have 2. I think they've avoided that by scraping by against ASU and Stanford the last couple of weeks. So if Washington then wins out, guess what? At 11-1, the Huskies are still going to be in the top 10. So if you want to maximize Oregon's strength of schedule, USC needs to win this week. USC needs to win this week because that makes them a better win, and Washington will be a top 10 win no matter what. And I think that the total amount of strength of schedule points gained by playing a top 15 USC and a top 10 Washington, maybe down at like number 7 or 8, is greater than just beating a 5th or 4th ranked Washington team that's unbeaten in the Pac-12 championship game. So I think that, but that's the only loss where I think it can help in a significant way because USC is coming to Autzen next week. The same principle can apply as well to the Oregon State game, but we'd only want 1 because you want to have a top 10 win on your resume just to be sure, though again, 99.99% sure. Actually, no. I can't say 100% about anything, but I'm 99.99999% sure that if Oregon wins out and wins the Pac-12 championship and they're a one-loss Power 5 champ, they're getting into the playoff. Because the teams that are above them right now, I don't see anybody leapfrogging them at this point in time. But if a Bama were to catch fire, or a Texas or somebody like that, though the Big 12 is terrible. I mean, gosh, beyond the top two teams, it's bad. Kansas State, I think, is going to go in and get housed by Texas this week. We'll see. I think they're going to go in there and get housed by Texas, even with a backup quarterback. It's in Austin. Like, I got no qualms with Texas in that game. So that's the wild card team, is either Texas or Bama, but Texas beat Bama, so Texas would have to fall out of it. But then Bama's resume is like, it's okay. It's not bad, but it's just okay. So I think that'd be the best outcome for the Ducks. USC beats Washington. Washington wins the rest of their games. Oregon beats a top 15 USC. Oregon beats a top 20, top 25 Oregon State team in the Civil War. And then you have a top 10 matchup with Washington. You avenge your loss from earlier in the year. I think that's the best way to go about it. So great question there. Great question. Let's wrap up with a pair from Blazer Duck, who first off makes a great point. I got asked a mailbag question the other day on the show, and it was, if you had to come up with a movie title to kind of summarize the Ducks season so far, I came up with Field of Dreams, because it was like, if you build it, they will come. And if you build that sort of magical team that Dan Lanning just might have right now, Oregon fans are going to show up, and we'll be able to show up in Las Vegas for a Pac-12 title game and chance to go to the college football playoff. Yeah, the right answer is what my guy Blazer Duck sent in, which is the Mighty Ducks. Well, now who feels like an idiot? This guy right here. So, last question here from Blazer Duck. Spencer, Oregon has played 8 games so far. They've held 5 of the 8 teams to 10 points or less. Great stat. The defense has been absolutely dominant. I can't think of another year where Oregon's defense has been this dominant. Can you? So through 8 games, they're allowing 15.5 points per contest. In 2019, which is a year that got referenced this summer coming into this year, because that's the last time Oregon had a great defense, they allowed 16.5 points per game. Now, that was through, 14 games. It was a very good defense. In 2014, by the way, which is what this Oregon team kind of feels like, because they've got a really good defense and they've got a fantastic offense. I think this team is a tad more balanced. I think 2014, that defense allowed 23.5 points per game. I think 2014's team was, and I could do a longer comparison on this. Let me know if you want me to. I'd be happy to. But I think 2014's team was like 60-40 defense. I think this team is like, or 60-40 offense back then. This team feels like 52-48 offense defense. Really, it does. I think that offense had a slightly higher gear, though not much, than what this one's got. And I think this defense is a little better. And that one certainly had some dudes. But I really like this Oregon team. A lot of national pundits and local pundits describe Oregon as the most complete team in the Pac-12. They are correct. They are correct. Oregon has played 2 one-possession games this year. The Texas Tech game early in the season against their first Power 5 opponent, first road game, while they were still trying to figure a number of things out. Since then, they've just been dominating people. And if they can avenge that loss against Washington, the committee's not going to leave them out of the playoff. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.